What is up, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, and welcome to a very special Steelers preview where we are talking about the 2024 Pittsburgh Steelers regular season schedule, which is now official. The stupid leaks are done. I said this on Twitter earlier today. I think it's more annoying than mock drafts, to be honest with you. But nonetheless, it's here. There's no more speculating and recollecting, as Antonio Brown would say. So let's get right to it. Dave Schofield, what's up? Welcome to the show.
Hey, Jeff. To quote the great Dumb and Dumber, that John Denver is full of, or at least the song that was our intro is full of it, because I don't think I like it.
Thought the Rocky Mountains would be a little rockier than this. Bryan Davis, what's up, Bryan?
So glad to be here, fellas. Hey, the schedule, at least we know. Start planning. I'm already have a list for you to tell you what games I'm going to try to go to and not be on the post-game show.
Okay, that sounds good. I'll tell you the games that I'm going to, and we're done. So let's go to the games. Let's talk about the schedule. For those that don't know, let's do it this way, guys. Let's go through like 4 games or 4 weeks. We'll give our thoughts, not predictions. Predictions are going to come here in the second half of the show, but let's at least do the thoughts on the games, how they all break down, times, all that stuff. So let's start off in week 1. We're going to do 4 weeks at a time. So September 1st or September 8th, the first week of the season, the Steelers go to the Atlanta Falcons for a 1 p.m. game. Week 2, they go to the Denver Broncos for a 4:25 kickoff. Then the first home game, the home opener is the 22nd of September. The LA Chargers come to Acrisure Stadium, and then in week 4, they go to the Indianapolis Colts at 1 p.m. So the first 4 games, 3 of them on the road: Falcons, Broncos, Chargers, and Colts. Dave, what was your take on this first 4 games of the regular season?
I mean, those are probably, when you look at everything else combined, 4 opponents that do not just instill absolute fear in you. If you were to look at any of them broken down any particular way, that one was probably one that you would say is on the lighter side at first glance. But then again, how many times do we get teams that you don't expect to be great that are, and ones that you expect to be good that aren't? So that's why they play the games. But at first glance, that's what I would say. Not surprised the Steelers have to wait to week 3 to be at home after, and unfortunately this was after Bryan and I did our predictions, when I actually looked at the Pirates schedule. It wasn't going to work for them to be at home the first 2 weeks.
Okay. Bryan, what's your take on those first 4 games?
So the first 4 games are exactly what Dave says. They are probably, it's like a bad call. You go ahead and get a bad call. So this is the makeup call for the end of the schedule, as far as I'm concerned. We're going to talk about the end of the schedule, but they start off with a chance to start off very strong. And, I don't think this is a 4-0 slate. Exactly like Dave said, that there's going to be some teams that surprise you. You don't know who the Chargers are. You definitely, I mean, Kirk Cousins is coming into Atlanta, and that's fine. And you're looking at this schedule, but nothing's instilling fear in you. You don't know what Denver is. Denver might not have much of a quarterback, but it is in Denver, and the Steelers always have trouble in Denver. Actually, the Steelers have trouble in Denver. One of their worst regular season AFC opponents in history, and that's true. It's the Denver Broncos. They struggle with them more than anybody else in the American Football Conference. And the Colts, we don't know who they are either. We don't know really who Anthony Richardson is at quarterback. They don't have to deal with Gardner Minshew yet, but they will. But that schedule, it seems like you can get off to a very good start.
I think they're going to have to get off to a good start. When you look at the schedule in and of its in complete all 18 weeks, and you see the tail end, we'll get to that in a second, and they're going to have to take advantage of certain stretches. And it's funny that we say that, because if you rewound the tape all the way back to last year at the schedule release, we were probably saying that for about the stretch that the Steelers had the very worst stretch of the 2023 season, when you looked at, okay, the Colts, you had the Patriots, you had the Cardinals, and I'm missing one. Who else am I missing in that stretch? Or was it just those 3 games?
Patriots, Cardinals. No.
Anyways, it's not important. Anyways, that was a stretch that you had to take advantage of. They didn't, and they ended up doing things that no one expected. Like, oh, they're not going to go to Seattle and win. And they actually did. So let's keep that in mind as we're going through this. But this is an easier slate of games than the first 4 than they have compared to the last 4. But let's go to the next 4. Week 5, Sunday Night Football, the Steelers' first primetime game. They are hosting the Dallas Cowboys at 8:20. That's October 6th. That's going to be a lot of fun. Then we go to week 6, October 13th. They go back to Sin City, the Las Vegas Raiders. They won there last year. It's a 4:05 kickoff. Week 7 and 8 are both home games and both primetime matchups and both against New York teams. Week 7, the Jets come to Pittsburgh on Sunday Night Football. Week 8, the Giants come to Pittsburgh on Monday Night Football. This before the Week 9 bye. Gentlemen, what do you think about this stretch? This is unique. Dave, we'll start with you.
Yeah, it's weird. There's no 1 o'clock games, 3 prime time and an afternoon game. So 3 out of 4 at home. You don't always necessarily get that when it's the 8 home, 9 away, that you get a stretch of 3 out of 4 at home. But honestly, this is another one of those that you're like, this is where this team really needs to get going. They need to find themselves early in that part of the schedule, which sometimes the Steelers have struggled in September. I talked about that on Stat Geek last week. And then they're in October. This is the part where they need to get on a roll. So prime time, especially, not only they have 3 games at home, 3 games in prime time, and they're the same 3 games. 3 home primetime games in that 4. That's crazy to have it set up that way. It just doesn't make sense. But if we want to talk about not making sense, we haven't even begun yet.
We're just getting started. Brian, what do you think about this stretch of 4 games in the bye week?
I love the Cowboys game being at home, of course, and on on primetime on Sunday Night Football. That to me is exciting. That's a marquee matchup. That's a legendary matchup. They'll have a lot of fun with that. And you just, like I said, you don't know who the Dallas Cowboys are ever going to be. That's kind of a theme here. The next week, a game I'm hoping to get back to and actually go to the game this time in Las Vegas against the Raiders. It is a 4:05 game. So there it'll be wake up early and go there for a 1 o'clock start. Hopefully for me. Traditionally the Steelers have not done poorly when they go out west. Now, in the last couple years, they're kind of turning that thing around. The Raiders have an emerging team, but a tough defense, but still questions at the quarterback position, and Josh Jacobs is gone. They have 1 marquee receiver. They have a couple good tight ends, but that's going to be an interesting game too. October 20th against the Jets. Well, here's the thing. Aaron Rodgers might be on his spaceship by then. He might be beamed up and on his way to his new home in outer space. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, just all of his comments, all his conspiracy theories, I really think that he's planning for life on Mars. So with that being said, the last game is something that is hopefully not 23 years and 2 weeks in the making, because on October 14th, 1991, the Steelers hosted the Giants at home. And it was the last time that they lost a Monday Night Football game at home. It's the Giants. They are not that 1991 team that was coming off a Super Bowl championship. They're not they're a team in complete disarray. So hopefully that will be a good game against the Jersey teams.
I mean, this is a stretch as well. When you look at the Dallas Cowboys, okay, they should be good, at least on paper. The Raiders, I'm not sold on the Raiders. For me, I look at Gardner Minshew. I know it's in Vegas, and that's important. And Antonio Pierce. Brian's basically a Raider fan now. Anyways, let's go to the Jets.
Part-time.
Yeah, the Jets with the New York Jets. You do have the Aaron Rodgers factor. I think it's also important to note that last year was a great example of what one injury can do to an entire season. So Aaron Rodgers goes down in week 1. He's not getting younger. His beliefs off the field, that's neither here nor there. I couldn't care less, Dave. There you go. And then you have the Giants with Daniel Jones. Like, really? Like, I'm not that upset with what the Steelers have on their slate before the bye, which, by the way, Dave, what did you think about the bye week being in week 9?
Love it. When Brian and I did our predictions, we said He said 7, I said 10, so I guess technically I was closer. I just thought it would be a nice space for it. 9 is, I mean, that's really good. 8 before, 9 after, that week 9 or week 10 is really your best buy if you want to split it up. Yeah, you can talk about the advantage about having a really late buy. You could spin it that way, but a lot of times it's good just to get that, split your season up in that way.
Yeah, Brian, what's your thoughts on week 9 bye week?
Yeah, that's a perfect bye week for what they're looking at. That's a good reset. They're not looking at a change of bringing a rookie in after the bye week at quarterback. They're not going to be looking at anything like that, like some teams actually do. So this is kind of a nice start to really a nice start to the season. They can be in really good position here, but also facing a huge uphill climb at the end.
Yeah, it's funny because when you look at the slate of games, and again, we're just looking at the first 8 games. The Steelers have how many division games? That's right, 0. They don't play a division game before the bye week. I cannot tell you the last time the Steelers had 8 games. Maybe you all can, Dave and Brian. You guys have the memory for that. The last time the Steelers played 8 games without one single division game. Can y'all think of it at all?
No, I cannot.
I can't either.
Nope. Dave? I mean, I don't know that it hasn't happened.
I'm not saying it hasn't. I'm not. Yeah, I'm not about to say like, oh, well, that was in 1975 and they did blah blah blah. Like, no, I don't know the answer. I'm just saying it's crazy that's we're talking 8 games, 8 weeks of football, and not one division game.
And Jeff, if I'm not mistaken, there was a time when there were 5 or 6 teams in the Central Division. So that could never happen. I mean, that was in the mid 90s when you had Jacksonville coming into the division and then the Oilers were still around.
I mean, they have always backlogged in my opinion, they've always backlogged the division games, but they've never had 0 in the first 8. You'd always have like one Cleveland game, and then maybe the rest are in the back half or something along those lines. All right, let's continue after the bye here. So after the bye, November 10th, the Steelers go to the Washington Commanders for a 1:00 game. Then they host the Baltimore Ravens at 1 p.m. in week 11. Then they go on Thursday Night Football, short week, to the Cleveland Browns. I hate this game. 8:15 p.m. Then following Thursday night, so a little mini bye, week 13, December 1st at Cincinnati, 1:00 kickoff. What do you all think about that stretch of 4 games? Again, week 10 at the Commanders, 1:00. Week 11, host the Ravens, 1:00. Week 12, Thursday Night Football at Cleveland. Week 13 at Cincinnati. So now we have 3 out of 4 games in this stretch, which are divisional games. Dave, what do you think? Dave, you're muted. Amateur hour. You just got fined by Big G.
I'm really sorry, but I just threw some of my tickets on Ticketmaster and they're gone. So I'm trying to deal with what I'm doing. Yeah, I thought I made a lot of my Cowboys tickets 8 years ago. Yeah.
It's the Cowboys.
And I don't have to worry about my Christmas tickets. Sorry, Tyler W., but I threw them out there for a lot of money and they were gone like that. I'm like, I should have thrown them out for more money. So now I'm trying to adjust some things, saying, I'm only going to sell any of the other ones for, to people I don't know, unless it's for a whole lot. And that's the thing. I'm not going to rip off people I know. So that's just how it goes.
I don't think you're ripping anybody off. Actually, that's the going rate.
Dude, I just made $900 in my Cowboys tickets.
Okay, well, anyways, the question was, what do you think about the 3 divisional games out of the 4, the 4th being the game after the break with the Commanders on the road? What are your thoughts on that stretch?
We're live. I'm sorry, I completely missed that. 4th wall down. Here we go. Love the come out of the bye, Commanders on the road. That's actually a favorable spot for the Steelers. Then you've got Baltimore, which is never a whole lot of fun. But man, 7-1 in the last 8 games, crazy. Then I get mad because the Steelers not good, short week after the Ravens, and they did it to them here. But I should have recorded that so I can play it again later when we talk about the next one. So that's not good. But then you get going to Cincinnati after the rest. Then that's another favorable one in there. So it's like one really bad, two pretty nice. One is the Ravens. It is what it is. So it's kind of a wash. Other than the fact of, my goodness, that's 3 straight divisional games. But to me, I would throw the 5th game in there. You got to throw an extra game in somewhere. Yeah. I'd throw it in this quarter.
We can,
because that's 5. That's 5 divisional games. 5 divisional games.
Yeah, that's 1, 2, 3. You're right.
No, 4 after Washington. Sorry,
so after Washington,
where it's all 4.
Right. So if we go one more week to week 14, that's December 8th, where the Steelers have the Cleveland Browns. So you have this stretch of versus Baltimore, at Cleveland Thursday night, at Cincinnati, versus Cleveland in week 14. So these 2 Cleveland games are almost back to back with a Cincinnati game in between. Brian, what's your take on that stretch?
Man, I'm looking at this stretch and I'm thinking, okay, Murderers Row, 4 games in a row against the division, the Commanders. Yeah, I mean, that's nice. I'm going to that game, I believe. I've already promised family that we're going because it's close. The Ravens, Dave just said it, 7-1. They swept them last year. Is that going to happen again? No, but here's what I say about the Ravens. When you look at Baltimore against the Pittsburgh Steelers, you got to look at Lamar Jackson. The Steelers played Lamar Jackson well, but you don't even know if Lamar Jackson is going to be playing in that game, because playing 16 games last season, I believe he played 16. I know he didn't play the final week of the season, but he had a complete non-injured season. Then he had 2 games in the playoffs. So that's 18 games that he played last year. I don't think he's going to get through. What week is that? 11? I don't think he's going to get through 9 more games. It's just, I don't think he's going to be able to go 27 games or 26 games in a row without being injured. So I think the style of play, who he is, his history, you never know what's going to happen there. And it's the same with the Browns and Bengals. When the Steelers played those teams in the late stretch, they didn't play Joe Burrow. They didn't play the Deshaun Watson. They didn't play these guys. I don't like Dave said at the beginning, I hate following up with the Browns after a Ravens game, because he just did that show last week about who are the toughest teams to play after you play certain teams. So that's kind of what we're looking at here. You got to get the division game somehow, but this will start shaping the division. One of these teams is going to be down and out by the time we get there. They're going to either have an injury or they're going to be suffering some kind of misfortune to not be a murderer in this row.
Okay. I mean, you look at all these divisional games and they're all jam-packed in there together. And the one thing that I find solace in is the fact that the Steelers, they play the division well. I mean, last year they went 5-1 in division play. And yeah, the Ravens fans were like, well, the last week of the season, we weren't even playing all our stars. I don't care. The Steelers won the game. So they finished 5-1. There's no asterisk there. There's no caveat. So I look at this and I hate the Thursday night game at Cleveland, because not just because of I listened to Dave Stackey podcast where he talked about that, but I hate that Thursday night off of a Baltimore Ravens game. It just doesn't sit well with me. But you're right, Brian. I mean, you could say injuries to a number of players can always change these games one way or the other. So they have 4 straight division games, none in the first 8. And then in that stretch of 5 games, 4 of them are against division opponents. And then they finish up week 15. This is the final stretch of the season. Week 15, the Kenny Pickett revenge game at Philadelphia. That's week 15. Week 16, Saturday game at the Baltimore Ravens, 4:30 kickoff. The Philadelphia game's 4:25. And then week 17 is Christmas Day. I did that wrong in the article. Christmas Day, Kansas City Chiefs, 1:00. And then the last game of this regular season, to be determined what day, because they'll flex Saturday games and primetime games. So the time is to be determined as well. And that's at home versus the Bengals. Dave, how do you like the finish there?
Well, There's one good game after the bye, and then no, the rest of it there. Like Brian's going to talk about partying like it's 1965. I'll let him go into that one. The Baltimore in Baltimore on a Saturday? No problem with that one. No problem with that one. That's not surprising that that's what they would do. I don't like the Christmas game, not just because it's on Christmas. I don't like another short week after playing the Ravens. 2 times the Steelers had to play short weeks this season. 2 times. Both times. It's following playing the Baltimore Ravens. Which is not a good scenario for them. It's like they found the worst case scenario and put it all together. They might as well have, given them the Eagles in week 4 on Thursday night in Philadelphia. If you listen to my Stat Geek, you have an idea last week why that was that way. It was just one of those perfect storms. I think there's some really bad storms that they've set up of things that doesn't happen to the Steelers often, but when they do, it's not good. So that's why I don't like that Christmas game against, my goodness, the reigning Super Bowl champions. And you're dealing with that. That's not good. Now, once again, the Bengals should complain because both times they played the Steelers are coming off mini buys.
Yeah.
Both times. That doesn't seem right to Cincinnati, but it is what it is. So I actually like those, but that part of it. But yeah, that Christmas Day game, first of all, 1:00, that just sucks anyway. They should have played them at 4:30 and 8 rather than 1 and 4:30. But it's the short week playing on a Wednesday thing that bothers me more than anything.
What about you, Brian? What's your take?
So when I go ahead and take a look at this part of the schedule, I kind of feel the same way Dave does, but I look at something that I just thought was unnecessary, and I look at it in a different way. I understand Dave saying the 1:00 game on Christmas is ridiculous. Yes. But really, when you're looking at December 15th and December 21st at Eagles, at Ravens, yeah, they want them in prime time. I get it. But come on, look at the schedule, look down the road. An extra 3 hours to 3.5 hours to some people might not mean anything, but those are East Coast games. They don't have to be there. They don't have to be in prime time there, especially the Saturday game. There's always a 1:00 Saturday game on that late in the season. There was one last year with Cincinnati and Minnesota. And then the Colts came up next, and it was a bad situation in that game. But I'm looking at this. I'm like, all right, I get it. It's about money and primetime and all these great matchups. But look at what you're putting these guys through. And it's just not the Steelers. It's the Ravens too. Man, this is not fair to Baltimore either. And I know Brian's going to say, and the Ravens can kiss it. Yes, I get it, but it's not fair to them either. They're in the same boat. So you're looking at that. Both of these teams are playing very good playoff teams on Christmas Day, and you could have given them a little bit more of a break. You could have even played with the schedule on December 20th and given them a Friday game for that matter. But then you're coming off another short week. So, you're making it a short week again. So as far as everything goes, partying like it's 1965. Yeah. The last time the Pittsburgh Steelers played in Philadelphia, that's a long, long time. 59 years? Well, we'll just see what happens there. But look at the stretch that the Eagles had last year, where they were sure to be Super Bowl champions. A lot of people thought they were ready to go. Now, down the stretch, they were horrendous. They looked very bad down the stretch. If Pittsburgh's good, well, yeah, they could be okay in that game, but it is still in Philadelphia. The other games, once again, I'm looking at the fact that those teams aren't going to be right, that the Steelers have had some good success against them, the way they're coached, and you might disagree with me on that, but I just feel like this is going to be not the worst stretch in the world. It's going to be rough, but we saw back in 2008 We saw when this team had one of the worst schedules of all time in their history, and they won the Super Bowl. So I know there wasn't Christmas Eve games. I know there wasn't stuff close enough, but they respond to that. I have a feeling this Steelers team is going to be another us against the world team. So I have no problem with that either, fellas.
When I look at this last stretch here, I mean, it's tough. Don't get me wrong. It's tough. And going to Philly's never easy. Baltimore is never easy. Kansas City is Kansas City. And then you finish up with Cincinnati. But, the thing is that I think that this is just such a backloaded schedule. But again, we said the same thing last year. I remember having the same sentiment about the schedule. The last quarter is brutal for the Steelers. They have to take advantage and all this stuff. Stuff happens. We've seen the Steelers rise up and beat teams, and we've seen them fall to the worst teams in the league. So I don't want to overreact here, but we are going to go through this game by game. And by the way, the Christmas Day game, I wish it was 4. I think that would be better for a lot of people on the East Coast. I don't want 8, 1 o'clock. I hated Christmas Eve. Like Christmas Eve.
That one was the worst.
That was the worst because as a father of 5 young kids, you are very busy on Christmas Eve. And Christmas Day for us is a little bit more relaxed. So we just have to shuffle some things around. People might be coming to our house instead of us going to theirs. But hey, we'll do what we got to do. But I'd rather a December 25th game than a December 24th game, if I'm being honest.
Can I ask a quick question?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Do you like having a mini bye with only one game left in the season?
Yes.
I can see the advantages and disadvantages. The advantage is it gives you a chance to get healthy, and kick some stuff in. But with only one game left, that's like, ugh. But at the same time, if you're on a roll, if you could actually win a number of those games, I mean, if you win that Christmas Day game, it's hard to keep momentum rolling after 10 days off. So I could see it either way. You got to spin everything you can for a positive to say, let's say this is a good thing.
Go ahead, Brian.
The Chiefs had Christmas Day at home, a 1 o'clock game last year, and lost. They lost in a frigid game in Kansas City. Taylor Swift was there. The whole world was there, and they blew it, and they ended up winning the Super Bowl. So there's teams that don't always have their head on right during those holidays.
That was against your Raiders, right?
Yeah. Hey, I have no problem. It's I don't have a problem with you saying that. But when it's I'm going to yell at you when it's Steelers Raiders week, and you're going to ask me who I'm rooting for because this is
you'll be wearing the silver and black for sure.
No, yeah. I don't own anything silver.
You'll get some. It's Vegas, baby. All right.
Whoa. It's a load of crap. I've seen you wear the sparkly silver shirt.
Yeah, but I don't own like any Raider gear.
Oh, you said you don't own anything silver. I'm like,
okay, yeah, but you know what? Good. You can take that. You can say that all you want, Jeff, and I know that's going to be a thing. I have no problem rooting for a team that I do work for, but not against the Steelers.
Okay. Yeah. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back from the break, we're going to do our ever popular prediction segment. So stay tuned. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. All right, we're back for the second half of the Steelers preview. We've talked about week by week what we think as it pertains to the games. We didn't go over the Raiders schedule. Brian will do that on a separate show, I'm sure. But let's talk about... All right. So, Dave, do you want to orchestrate this mess or do you want me to and you just write down the predictions?
You orchestrate so I can write.
All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to go week by week. We're going to give our predictions. This is just straight up wins, losses. Dave's going to tally them up and tell everyone. And I'm going to try to be honest here, okay? Everyone always wonders, oh, my gosh, is Jeff going to do 17-0 and all that stuff? We'll try to do this honest. I did it last year, too. I think I was honest last year. I don't think you've only
done a 17-0 thing one time.
Yeah, I get
and you acted like you always did. I'm like, no, you pick the Steelers every week. And when that week comes up, that's understandable. That's understandable. Yeah. But now it's looking forward, looking ahead, realistically as a whole. Okay. There's nothing wrong with thinking they're going to win every week. That you're going to get them wrong in there, everyone.
Okay. So let's get this thing started. Week 1 at the Atlanta Falcons. Well, what did I said? Brian, Dave, me. That's the rotation, right?
Yep.
Dave? Okay. Brian,
Yeah.
win or loss?
When they go to Atlanta in the ATL and they win that first game, I don't care Kirk Cousins, I don't care Michael Penix, I don't care who it is. Steelers win.
All right. Dave?
Yes, I agree. I have that down as a win. Sometimes I try to fill mine out ahead of time to see if I'm going to adjust it, and I haven't this time. I'm doing it completely off the cuff. I'm going to say that one's a win. I got faith in this Steelers team that they're going to be there and ready to rock.
Yeah, there's a lot of incentive here. Arthur Smith going back to Atlanta. I think this is when the Steelers might show, like, hey, this is what we're actually going to look like this year, meaning the offensive side of the football. I think the Steelers win this one. I don't think it's going to be a lot of people are thinking it's going to be like a blowout win. Kirk Cousins is going to have those guys playing good football, and so is Raheem Morris. So I have that as a win. Let's go to at Denver, week 2. Brian, what do you think?
You know what? They typically do not play well there, but I've seen them win there. I think that Bronco team is in disarray. I don't see them winning this game. I see them get to starting off as poorly as they did last year. So I'm actually going to say on the road, the Steelers start out 2-0.
All right, Dave.
Everything about this tells me to go loss. It's traveling west, although they did fine with that last year. It's a 4:25 away game, which they're not so good with the 4:00 away games. And it's a team that historically they struggle against. But if this is Russell Wilson going up against the team that was basically screwing him over last year with the head coach shouting at him on the sidelines, trying to get a reaction, so therefore they could suspend him and not have to guarantee his money with part of his contract. Yeah, if he's the starter, man, this is a big one for him. And if he's not the starter, hopefully that means it's because somebody else is playing even better. So that just makes it a better situation all around. Me, with my gut, I'm going to say the Steelers find a way to win this one based on that. Even if Russ isn't the starter, they're going to want to win it for him anyway.
I'm going to say it's a win for one thing. You could talk about all that stuff. Like you talk about the thin air and the altitude. Who is going to be Denver's quarterback in week 2?
Yeah.
And that's an honest question.
Stidham?
Is it Jared Stidham? Yeah,
Zach
he doesn't
Wilson?
scare me.
Zach Wilson.
Nope, he doesn't
Wilson
either.
v. Wilson.
Is it Bo Nix? Like, okay, yeah, throw the rookie out there, please. In week 2, please put him out there. I like the Steelers to win that game, even though they're on the road. So I have them at 2-0. We all have them at 2-0, I believe. And then they come back for the Chargers, September 22nd, week 3, 1:00 kickoff. Brian, what you got?
Harbaugh rolls into town. I don't like this game. It's just there's something about it. You know, we've seen a West Coast team come in for the home opener in the last year as well. I think this is a game that actually scares me. If they lose this game, it'll be less than 3. It won't be a blowout. It'll be close, but I'm actually going to take the loss on this one.
Ooh, okay. Dave?
I'm going to take the loss. They need to win games early. That's going to be key this year. Home opener, having to wait until week 3 to finally be at the friendly confines of Acrisure Stadium. I'm going to say they find a way to win that game as well.
I think this is when the Steelers start to, maybe the offense especially, starts to kind of figure some things out, start to get their footing. And new coach with Harbaugh, Herbert's fantastic. He's one of my favorite young quarterbacks in the league, but I just don't see them making that cross-country trip and the Steelers having their home opener. I've got the Steelers winning it. Yes, 3-0 in that regard. Let's go to week 4 at Indianapolis, 1:00 kickoff. They played there last year. It didn't pan out well against Gardner Minshew and the boys, but it's not, at least on paper right now, it's not going to be Gardner Minshew. It's supposed to be Anthony Richardson. Brian, you talked about that a little bit earlier. What do you think about this game?
And it's not going to be Mitch Trubisky either. So I kind of feel a whole lot better about this game. This is a game I'm looking to be in attendance for. This is a game I'm going to try to go to. You know, take the road trip, put some gas in the car. Me and my buddy, another Steelers fan, are going to go ahead and make that road trip. At least we're talking about it as of today. I really think the Richardson, I'm not so sure about him. I know that's kind of a tough defense, but this team, the Steelers could play with this team. The Steelers could have played with this team last year, and they started off well against this team. It's just the Colts. That was just a weird game, and that was the last game of the stretch where they were supposed to win those three you were talking about earlier, the Cardinals, the Patriots. It was the Colts, and then they started the winning streak. So I'm going to go ahead and say that they get back on the winning track. 3-1, baby.
All right, Dave, what about you?
Oh, I have the Steelers at 3-0. It's week 4. It's the worst week that they have. Something happens to the Steelers in week 4, especially on the road even more. I got a loss for this one. Here comes that unexpected loss against a team that they probably should beat.
I think that in the first 4 games, if there's a loss I see, it would be this one. Last year, though, they bucked a lot of trends. The West Coast thing. There were some other trends that they were able to buck. I'm going to hope that they do it this in week 4 and kind of buck that trend days. I'm going to go with a win. Anthony Richardson, I think he might struggle. a little bit. I've heard some rumblings in that regard. So we'll go with the Steelers there, and then they come back to Pittsburgh.
Well, let's say that's the first quarter.
That is what do we have? Update.
Well, Jeff is 4-0
naturally,
but I mean that's not a crazy 4-0.
No.
And Bryan and I are both 3-1.
All right.
Difference is Bryan has the loss at home. I have the loss at Indy.
Okay. So week 5, Sunday Night Football, the Dallas Cowboys come into town. Dave just made a crap ton of money off of this game. And so what do we think about this one, Bryan?
There's a part of me that thinks that this could be a loss because of Dak is rolling, but I would think that if Dak and the Cowboys are rolling, it's through the first 4 games. I think I cannot see them losing 2 games to start off in Acrisure Stadium. So I'm going for the win against the Dallas Cowboys on Sunday Night Football with my guy Chris Collinsworth. Hey, if we're gonna bring up bad love and everybody that you all hate, I love Chris Collinsworth.
Yeah, I mean he just talks a lot sometimes. There's way more annoying people in my opinion. Dave, what about you?
I'm going at this very analytically. It's prime time at home. It's not Monday Night Football, which is a little bit different, but it's still prime time at home, where the Steelers are quite good. So therefore, I am going with that. They're going to have a big game, get up for it, especially coming off a loss in Indy. From what I have, this turns around to be a win.
Okay, bear with me here. This is not 17-0, but I think the Steelers win this game. I think it's a big game. It's hyped up. Dave talked about primetime games in Pittsburgh. They play very, very well. So let's go to week 6. They go out to Vegas. We know where Bryan's picking. He's going to go with his favorite team. So go ahead, Bryan.
Yes, I am going to go with my favorite team, and I'm going with the Pittsburgh Steelers here, which is still
I
my
left the door
favorite
open for
team.
you there, Bryan.
Thank you, and I knew what you were doing. And so, with the whole Raiders thing, I just Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew, that's not anything that really scares me with this team. That is going to be a really fierce defense that they're building there. If I will say Max Crosby is one of my favorite non-Steelers. He's been for years before I was even thinking about professionally doing anything with the Raiders. I just think he is a monster. And I saw what he did against them a couple years ago. But I really think the Steelers are a better team than rolled into Vegas in week 3. That was a home game on the road. There are a lot of black and gold out there, and you remember me not getting into the stadium once again. But no, I'm not a Raiders. Damn you, Jeff! You got me.
The curse of Frank Webb strikes again.
So I was doing so well too. Now I just feel like all the fans there. I really think that the Steelers are going to go in there, and this is a new Steelers team. Russell Wilson taking on the Raiders. I have no problem with it. They win.
Okay. Dave?
Yeah, this is one of those that I'm looking for where places there could be a hiccup. It's once again, it's that afternoon game on the road. I feel that if between the Cowboys and the Raiders, that they're going to drop one of them. So I have this as a loss in Las Vegas this time, just because something about it seems like it shouldn't be. That's therefore why it's going to be. But if the Steelers are coming off a loss at home against Dallas, then I think they would win the game. So bottom line is I have them 1-1 in that stretch of week 5 and week 6. But the way I just went off the cuff was Dallas, yes, Raiders, no. But I could very well see it going the other direction.
I agree with you, Dave. I think they split these two games. I don't think they lose at home in prime time, but then you have the West Coast trip, a little bit of a short week with the Sunday night game, even though it's a 4:05 kickoff. I think they might drop this. I think the Raiders are going to be a much improved team. The quarterback situation is all they have to figure out. They're building up the offensive line. Defense is already very good. And yeah, it'll be interesting. But I think they might have their first hiccup in one of these two games. And so I'm going to take that game in Las Vegas. Now they come back week 7 and week 8, both primetime games. The first one is Sunday Night Football versus the Jets. All right, Brian. What do they do?
We
against
just do both of these at the same time.
We can. Sure. Yeah, that's fine. We could do both at the same time.
We can. I think they split New Jersey at home in prime time. I don't like the matchup with the Jets after coming off of 3 weeks in a row with Aaron Rodgers, if he's not hurt, if he's not on another planet. And I will go ahead and say that they drop that one, and to keep it real, and the Monday night streak continues for another year. And I really think that. So I think it goes on to 33 years and counting on Monday Night Football against the Giants. I think the Giants are the worst team in the league, and I think that they might have the number 1 pick in the draft next year.
Interesting. What about you, Dave? These two games?
If the Steelers drop that game in Vegas, I see them coming back in prime time and taking care of business against the Jets. I see the defense stepping up pretty big. And so I have both of these as W's.
I do too, because Aaron Rodgers is fantastic, but Aaron Rodgers is not as fantastic when he doesn't have a great offensive line protecting for him. If the Steelers pass rush, because they do have some weapons, but man, they seem to have ignored the offensive line in a large part for a long time. And so I think that catches up with them. I think the Steelers are going to be hot. They know they have to win these games early on. So I've got them winning both heading into the bye. So Dave, according to the bye week, what is our record so far?
Okay, so for the second quarter, we were all even. We're pretty good homers here of 3-1 for the Steelers. That means Brian and I both have them at 6-2, and Jeff has them at 7-1.
Okay.
Heading into the bye week, boy, sign me up for that one.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, let's go after the bye. The Washington Commanders. That's week 10, 1:00 kickoff. Brian, are you going to that one?
Yes.
Close to home.
I'm taking my nephew, my son, and his best friend, since it's close to home. His best friend is a Commanders fan, but I'm going to teach him the ways of the Force. Steelers win.
Yeah, Dave?
Yeah, I just think, even though there's still a lot of questions with the Steelers, exactly what kind of quarterback player they're going to get, it just seems to me like the Steelers have in recent history been a whole different class of organization versus Washington. I have a win as well.
Yep. Who's the quarterback for Washington? That's the question. No one really knows the answer. I'll take the W there for sure. The Steelers, man, I'm trying to think. Brian, would you remember? Do you remember is it Monday Night Football when the Washington franchise has a Monday night game before an election year?
Yeah, 2008.
Yeah, because that was the Campbell year.
Jason
Campbell.
I
think it's just. I don't think it has to be. That's when they played the Steelers was on Monday night,
right? But it's a Monday
the
night
election year. It's. I think the election year, it's just their game before the election, regardless of what it is.
All right. I was wondering what it was. I knew it was.
But they play these teams. They play the NFC East every election year now. So
that's true. Yeah.
Since 2002, since 2004, which was an election year, they've played them every single year. I kind of, and they were making a big deal about, I think the the Washington franchise would win all those games before an election. And I think the Steelers broke that streak.
I believe you're right. All right, so let's do this next stretch of games, and we'll pair them together for the division. So we have home versus Baltimore, and then Thursday night at Cleveland. Brian, what do you got?
I like the game against Baltimore. It's at home. I'm feeling pretty good with this team. I'm going for a win there. Then on the road against Cleveland on Thursday night, I have visions of 4 years and 5 years and 7 days beforehand with the Myles Garrett whipping a helmet and cracking people on heads and not going to prison. So I just think that is I think that's a bad loss. I don't like that game in Cleveland, so I'm going to go ahead and say that they drop that game, but beat the Ravens.
Dave?
Yeah, you know that I'm going to go take the loss on a short week coming after Baltimore. The question is, how do they do against the Ravens? I have that one 1:00 at home. I was really torn about how to do this one, but I went with the win at home against Baltimore. So I have a win and loss.
I too. There's something about the Thursday game that just I hate. So I have a win against the Ravens. I also think my prediction is it's the only time the Steelers will see Lamar Jackson in this season. They beat him at home, and then they go on the road and lose to the Cleveland Browns the following week on the short week. So now let's then do the opposite side of these 4 games. Steelers go to Cincinnati in week 13, and then they have the Cleveland Browns at home in week 14. Brian, what say you?
All right. Can you say that first game before Cleveland is at Cincinnati?
It's Cincinnati.
And they're at Cincinnati.
Yeah.
You know, it's the whole thing is Joe Burrow going to be there or not? I'm going to go ahead and say that they go ahead and actually lose both Ohio games on the road. And that's not just being pessimistic. I think that's just going to be a rough stretch, the short week. And I know you've got a mini bye there. I just don't like playing Cincinnati with Joe Burrow. I think you split with him and their team. So I'm going to go ahead and say that Cincinnati didn't lose enough to go ahead and be at the bottom of that division. So I'm going to go 0 for 2 in Ohio.
Okay, so you have losing to Cincinnati. What about the Cleveland game?
They're going to go home against an Ohio team and get revenge.
All right, so you have them splitting that one. Dave, what about you?
Yeah, my thing is if you listen to my stat geek from last week, I hate to keep plugging that, but bottom line is I'm trying to look at it analytically. And if you look at the Steelers coming off of certain games, I looked at AFC North opponents. I looked coming off of, coming after a primetime game. I looked at playing, after a bye. Their highest winning percentage is actually coming off the mini bye. So Steelers play better coming off the mini bye. They're in Cincinnati. That's all right. I have that one as a win. Then they turn around the next week to play Cleveland again, and I don't have them dropping 2 to Cleveland. I don't see them losing both games to Cleveland. They're really up against it that first time they play them, coming off that Ravens game on a short week, while Cleveland's coming off a trip to New Orleans the week before. I'd say definitely the Steelers have the worst of that one. But when they play them the second time, I have them taking care of business at home against the Browns. So I have a win and win.
Yeah, cue up the Escalooser. The Steelers find a way to win both of these, and they beat the Browns. They're not getting swept by the Browns. They beat the Bengals. I have them going 2-0 in that stretch. So, Dave, what's the update?
I think you and I had identical picks there. You went win, loss, win. Yeah. So the update is that's the third quarter. It's got the extra game.
Yep.
Jeff and I both have them at 4-1. Brian has them at 3-2.
So what's the total so far?
So the total so far, Brian is at 9-4. I'm at 10-3, and Jeff is 13-2.
Damn straight. All right, let's go into the last.
I said 13. Sorry. Okay. 11-2.
There we go. I thought that sounded bad.
My bad. Yeah.
That's okay. Let's go to week 15, the Kenny Pickett revenge game. Philadelphia Eagles at Philly, 425. All right, let's just go ahead, Brian. Are you
I
going
think
to this game? Are you
Yeah,
going to
well,
Philly?
I'm gonna try. I don't know if I'm gonna get to all of these games I'd like to. I don't think I'm gonna get there.
Okay.
I've been to that stadium before, but it wasn't the Steelers. I'd like to go, but I realistically don't think it's going to happen that late in December on December 15th. So I'm going to go ahead and say that they actually break the streak. I'm saying
Really?
it's over. The streak
Wow.
is over. The
Wow.
Pennsylvania State Championship game is over. So I feel pretty good about it. Just
All
like I felt back in the 1980 season when my Raiders beat the Philadelphia Eagles in the Super Bowl. There you go.
Dave.
But if I can't beat you, I'm joining you. Go
There
ahead.
you go. There
Yeah, that's what you call steering into the skin.
you go. All right, go ahead, Dave. What do you think?
Can you party like it's 1965? I don't like that it's an afternoon game. That I don't think that helps either. Therefore, it's one of those things. I'm going with the data. I'm going with the numbers, and I'm saying it's a loss.
I am saying it's a loss. The only way it's a win is if Kenny Pickett is at quarterback. So, and that's just because that would mean Jalen Hurts is not in the lineup. That would change everything that they want to
Yes, it
do.
would.
So I'm going to assume that Jalen Hurts is playing. Therefore, I just think that there's something about that damn city. There's something about that team. It just never goes well. So that's a loss. Now let's go to the Saturday game, Week 16, Baltimore at Baltimore, 4:30. Brian, what do you think?
You know, I really want to say they're going to win this game. I don't want to have them losing every single road division game, but for the sake of where I'm going next, I'm going to go ahead and say they lose this game.
Okay.
Going into the bye. No, excuse me, going into the Christmas Day game. And then am I going with the next game too?
No, we'll hold off.
Okay.
Yeah, let's just hold off on the next game. So you're saying that they
This is a big stretch.
You say you win?
So
No, they're going to lose.
Oh, okay.
Let's give them the loss, and I'll drop down to 9-5, I guess.
All right, Dave.
Man, this one was tough as well, but it's really hard to pick the Steelers to sweep the Ravens every year. Although they've done it more often than not.
Yep.
The safer bet is to go 1-1. I almost had them lose at home to the Ravens. They've won 5 straight games in Baltimore, so the numbers say to go with it, or it's got to be a correction. For this one, I'm taking the loss because otherwise I have the Steelers with this phenomenal record. But I'm taking the loss. I would not be shocked at all if they could do it again.
I said earlier that it's the only time they're going to play Lamar. I think Lamar gets hurt. I think that the Ravens go in a tailspin. And even my buddy, who's a season ticket holder for the Ravens, says he's not expecting much from Baltimore this year. He said they lost too much, lost too many coaches. I think the Steelers win that game. The the Lamar less Ravens. I think the Steelers.
So you got them sweeping the Ravens.
Who's the backup? Because Huntley's gone.
Johnson. What's his name? I think it's something Johnson. He's been around. I think he was actually on the Yeah, I think he was actually on the Steelers at one point, like for a week.
He's been around with everybody forever.
Yeah, Huntley's not with them anymore. So that means it's one more reason why if Lamar goes down, I think they're screwed. So that's what I'm banking on. So let's finish this up with the Christmas Day game, and then we'll go to the Cincinnati Bengals after that. But let's do one at a time. Kansas City Chiefs, Brian.
I love this game for the Steelers. I think 1 o'clock game at home. I like how I like how the Chiefs were not focused last year when they played in a frigid game against a team from out west. I'm not going to mention their name, but they lost that game at home, and they were terrible because a good defense flustered them. I think the Steelers can do the same thing in this game with a crazy crowd. I had them lose last week against Baltimore. I did it on purpose because they're winning this game on Christmas Day. Merry Christmas, 3-0 on December 25.
All right, Dave.
Steelers, although it's recent history, very good on Christmas. Never lost. Steelers playing on a short week after playing the Ravens. haven't won in recent history. They've never won. They just haven't done it recently. That's almost even. It's home, which gives you a little bit of advantage, but you're going up against last year's Super Bowl champion and a really good team, which hurts a lot. I can't believe I did this. I got the Steelers dropping 3 straight towards the end of the season. This is a loss.
All right, so you have this as a loss. I do too. I just think that Patrick Mahomes and then the emotion of coming off of the Ravens week just doesn't, it's not a recipe for success. So let's update our records, Dave, leading into the last week, because at least for mine, it's going to matter.
Yes, Jeff, let me see here. You were at 11-2, right?
I think so.
You are now at 12-4.
Okay.
I am at 10 and is that 10? Is it? Wait, did I miscount something there? Yeah, I'm at 10-6. That didn't seem right.
Oh boy.
Nope, that's okay. I'm at 10-6, and Bryan is at 11-5. Yes, 11-5.
What was mine? Was what, 13-3?
The 12-4.
12-4. Okay.
12-4.
All right, that's important.
Yeah,
all right, so we go into this TBD game of, again, Cincinnati to finish out the season in Week 18. I'll give my explanation, but Bryan, go ahead. What do you think?
I actually think it's going to be TBD. I think it's going to be a Saturday because I don't think they're going to give the Steelers that long of a bye from Wednesday to Saturday. If they go Wednesday to Sunday, they're not going to do that. So I think division's going to be on the line. I think there's going to be very good. I think there's 3 playoff teams in this division again. I'm not sure who they all are. I don't know who's going to be the odd man out, but it's not going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I think they're going to win the division by winning this game against the Cincinnati Bengals at home.
All right, Dave.
All right. I am looking at this as much as anything of, yeah, it's a sweep of the Bengals, but you know what? It's a mini bye again. I'm taking a win.
So for me, I think that the Steelers are going to have locked up a playoff spot at that time, and it's only a matter of seeding. So, excuse me, I think that's going to change a lot for them. I'm not sure what Cincinnati will be, but I actually think that the Steelers, even if they choose to rest some players, still find a way to win. We used to see that all the time, and believe it or not, yes, I know that my division record is 5-1. They did it last year. I think they can do it again. They play the division well, and I think they're going to have to do it again. So for me, I look at it and say, hey, here's the deal. For me, the Steelers, I think, have a very talented roster. I think that going into Week 18, they are looking at, like I said, playoff spots locked up, and they can therefore kind of figure out. I think that the 1 seed would be lost if they lose to Kansas City, but that's just me. So, Dave, what's the final tally?
All right, final tally. Well, just for that last quarter, I had them finishing on a rough way, but then getting back on track. I had them at 1-3. Jeff had them at 2-2. Bryan had it 3-1. Overall, I have the Steelers going 11-6. Bryan has them 12-5, and Jeff has them 13-4.
Wow.
I think that's the ceiling. I think 13-4 is the ceiling. Like if someone said what's the best they could do, I think it's 13-4.
Me, I think that 11-6. I think that wins the North, but puts them around the 3 seed if they could get there. If not, I think they're the 5 seed as a wild card.
Okay. So, and Bryan had him at what?
12-5.
12-5.
Which that's probably high.
I still felt 11-6 was homering it pretty good, and here I'm the worst and probably going to get crushed.
People say to me last year was 10 wins, 10-7, and they had the stretch where they should have won, should have, could have, would have, all that stuff. But for me, I look at it and say, this team never performs the way that we think they will. They never do under Mike Tomlin. Whether it's the games they win, you're like, oh my gosh, I never thought they were going to win that game. Or the losses like last year's losses to the Cardinals and New England in a matter of days. So, Brian, do you see them making the playoffs?
Absolutely. I think they're winning the division.
Okay. Very good. Dave, do you see them winning the division, or do you see them just getting in? I know you threw out some scenarios. I'm just trying to figure out.
I could see them winning the division in a tiebreaker if it's close, just because 12 wins won it last year, correct? The Ravens were, or were
I
they
think the
13?
Ravens
I
were
don't know.
13. I think
Yeah,
they have
something like
13
that.
wins.
Why can't I remember? Because I don't care about that team.
Right.
They were 13. 13 wins won it last year. Yeah, you're right. So
That was with the
13
loss
wins.
in week 18.
Yes. So 13 wins won it last year, but I think it's a more difficult schedule this year. I think 12 would win it this year. Don't know if 11 could. It could maybe. That's why I said it would be one of those, like a somewhere between 3 and 6 for the Steelers, of where they're of a playoff seeding. But if they win 11 games, they're going to the postseason. So of course, I'm extra optimistic about stuff while still saying, hey, they're going to have some places where they sputter at times.
Yeah. Brian, do they win a playoff game?
I actually think that they do. I think this roster is turning a corner. I think this is where the Steelers are now, especially if they are at worst a 3 seed. I can see them beating the second wild card team.
All right, Dave, you agree? They win a playoff game this year?
I mean, based on my optimism now, yeah, I do. Yeah, with this is just so tricky. Yeah, that's what I would. That's even dropping those 3 games in December. My thing is, I look at so many parts on the schedule and I'm like, I gave them losses in 3 places that I really feel that I really wanted to give them a win.
Yeah,
in 3, but then you're talking about 14 wins. But we're looking at, I feel like they could win every one of these games. But the problem is finding the spots where they aren't going to pull it out when they should have. There's going to be games they're picked to lose and they win, and there's going to be games they're picked to win and they lose. That's the parity. That's why we tune in to watch every week.
absolutely. Absolutely. And so the funny thing is I'm trying to look up and see if since the schedule was released, if they've had any change in the future, the totals, which by the way, the Steelers are getting 2.5 points in week 1. The early spread is already out.
Yeah, I saw 3 points earlier, but yeah.
So 2.5 is what I have in front of me. But it was set at 8.5 was the over under for the future win totals. I mean, my gosh, I think you got to hammer the over. Mike Tomlin, say what you want. What's he done all career? He's had over 8.5 wins. So I would do that. All right. Any final thoughts here, Brian? Go ahead.
Yeah, I have a few final thoughts. I want to bring up Kevin Brokenborough here. This schedule prepares us for 2 playoff wins. I think I like that quote, and I really feel that that's exactly what it does. It prepares you to, a tough schedule, just like in 2008, makes it so that you are going to be able to thrive against these teams, even if you take a loss or 2 against one of these tough teams. So is 12-5 optimistic? Yeah, I think it is. I think the sweeter spot for the Steelers with that improbable loss and that improbable win, I think the sweeter spot's probably more about 11-6. I'd still be very happy with 11-6. This is a team that went 10-7 last year, and my gosh, this team looks like they're better. Even without Deontay Johnson, they look like they are much better than they were last year. At quarterback, I think they are much better than what they were last year. I think there's a lot of things that make me feel like they're a lot better. So I'm feeling really good about this team. One thing that I saw online, this is not my original thought, but this is 1 year. This is the one day out of the year, schedule release day, when every single NFL fan is in agreement that their team is getting screwed by the NFL. There's nobody that says, oh, the NFL gave us a gift schedule. They usually don't. I mean, there might be a time where you feel like they have. No, everybody is in that same boat today. If you're a Ravens fan, you're complaining about this schedule as well. So I understand. I can't wait for this season. I think it's going to be very special for my Pittsburgh Steelers, and I have no problem saying that. And just to set the record straight, if anybody's wondering if I'm wavering or not, I want to quote the great Howard Cosell in something that happened in 1985 in a limousine with just that he saw a fight. There was a fight, and he started calling it in the limousine. And then he turned around and looked, and somebody asked him about it, and he just said, "I know who I am." And so I know I'm a Pittsburgh Steeler fan. My role with Fans First Sports Network gives me a lot of silver and black coming my way. And you know what? If they win, it benefits FFSN for me because I get paid to work with them. But when it comes to black and gold, silver and black, when it comes to, yes, I know what happened on December 23rd, 1972. I know what happened. I watched that game, even though I was only a year old. I was a year and 20 days old. I watched that game, but I know for a fact that I was bleeding black and gold that day and pooping silver and black.
There you go. Dave, any final thoughts?
Yeah, before final thoughts, I'm going to ask you guys a question. Anything on, and looking back now at what you did, now that the whole season's done, anything you think you change?
What do you mean, like my prediction?
With your prediction?
No.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, I could waver because I might be too optimistic with the Philadelphia game.
Okay.
I could be, and I
You
might
can
be
talked out of
too
that one.
I might be too pessimistic with the Cincinnati game.
Yeah.
But
All right,
I didn't want to go too heavy with the wins.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I look back and I'm like, yeah, I don't know about that. I don't know that they would drop 3 games towards the end of the season like I had. But I also could see where I had losses early in the season before the bye week that the Steelers could potentially not lose those games. But I don't want to see another 2020 scenario where they are suddenly winning a whole bunch of games to start and then they hit a rough stretch. So every year is different. No 2 years are the same. And this is one of those that am I still concerned about the cornerback position? Yes. Am I still not sure what their thoughts are at wide receiver? Yeah. Is the quarterback play? That's the one that gets me. Because what could change this big time is you might have better quarterbacks that aren't finding a way to win games at the end or aren't doing things to protect the game to make sure that they aren't having turnovers, everything at the end. But it's still a lot to look forward to. It's going to be very different this year than it's been the last couple of years. So it's exciting. And if nothing else, now we know how it's all going to break down and what we can look forward to.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself. I'll be digging into this for steelcurtainnetwork.com as well as for my Friday Let's Ride podcast. It's weird that it's not Thursday. Like my week's all thrown off. So tomorrow on Thursday, you'll have the Pump the Brakes guys on the show. They'll be talking about the schedule, I'm sure, and a lot more. So make sure you check out their show. We thank you all for joining us for this very special Steelers preview podcast. We'll be back next week and continue to pick up where we left off going into round 3, right? Yeah, I think we're in round 3 in terms of previewing the rookies. So, all right, Dave, why don't you send us out?
Hey.
We'll see you next week for another Steelers preview.